What's going on, Trash Talkers? We are back with another episode for you. Today, we break news on NBA players refusing to play on the restarted season and debate whether or not the players should be forced to play, right? Next, we're going to analyze whether or not MLB Commissioner Rob Manfred is doing his best to and everything in his power to bring baseball in 2020, or whether he's keeping it hostage, says some ESPN reporters. Plus, we're going to discuss some of the news that the NFL Pro Bowl is going to be hosted in Las Vegas. And then we also are going to go through some of the accolades that ESPN voted for the NFL. All that and much more coming your way right now. All right, Nick, how's it going? How's it hanging for this week?
It's not too bad. Hey, the weather's been great, so I really can't complain. It's always nice when you're in New England and the weather starts to turn around and you're finally out of those, you know, 8 months of winter. it's
Yeah, the 16 months of straight winter, you feel like you've had over a year. I
Yeah,
get it. I understand. It's been nice,
absolutely.
Summer's out. Where I live, I'm sure, it's different for everybody that's watching this, but where I live, restaurants just opened up, so 50% capacity indoors. And so gyms opened up, like people can start doing things again. It's different. It's different because it's going back to normalcy. So,
Very
it's one
true.
of those things. But
Very true.
I want to jump right into some of the storylines that we're following this week and kind of get your perspective on what we're talking about and so forth. So, the big headline, right? A group of NBA players, and I believe we spoke about this. There's about 80 or more NBA players headed by Kyrie Irving is one of the most notable names on this,
hmm
right? Are refusing to play on the restarted season. What do you make of that? Like, what the hell is happening right now?
That is the last thing the NBA needs right now. It seemed like everything was pretty much going perfect. They had agreed upon starting the season back up. Everybody seemed to be on board, and then they give the players the option to say, "Hey, I'm not comfortable playing because COVID-19 is still around, and we've seen in a few of the southern states that it is actually rebounding and coming back in full form. That I don't want to put myself in that situation." And we're seeing that from a lot of the top 40 players, and having that option to hold yourself out of games because they're not obligated to be there, because giving them that option is really making the comeback of the NBA scary. We don't know if it's going to happen now. It was looking promising, and a lot of these top 40 players, Kyrie Irving being the vocal leader of the group, even though he wouldn't be playing, it's kind of scary because there might not be enough players to bring back the season, or they might have to, take some teams out of the NBA end of season slash postseason, just because they don't have enough people to play an entire tournament, or a couple weeks of basketball. That could
Right.
be really detrimental to the NBA, to the organizations, to everybody. But
Yeah. I mean, we were all excited for
oh,
basketball,
absolutely.
and for something to start to hinder it now, you're like, come on, man. Like, we were almost at the finish line, and now you're throwing, all this stuff at us. Let's bring it home. Let's work together. Let's bring it home. But I understand some of the you know some of the qualms that they're having, if you will. Where do you stand on this? Like, where do you specifically stand on this? Do you
Well,
think the players should be forced to play?
yeah, no, I like how it's set up now. They're not forced to play, and I like that they're given the option to not play if they don't feel comfortable. I feel like that creates the best scenario for everybody, because we don't want another, Rudy Gobert, or another player causing havoc, that just being a goof, and that's going to put other people at risk. So I want people who are there to play basketball and who want to be there, not that they're forced to. Because if you're forced to be in a situation you don't want to be in, then you're gonna, something's gonna go wrong at some point. It's bound to happen. And so I like that they're given the opportunity not to play. And I can't be told, I don't think we're fully shocked that this is what's happening. We kind of knew this. It was, some players were speaking out. Mainly Kyrie Irving was speaking out, saying, hey, if we should stick together and not go back even if they want to bring back the season. And it seems like he's kind of working on some players, but hey, if that's what they agree, then that's how they feel. That's what's you kind of have to live by them. They're the ones who create the game and put on the show for us. So at the end of the day, it is up to them, and I stand by their decision. I'm not gonna say I wouldn't be any different, or I don't know how it would be. I'm not a professional athlete. I'm not a professional basketball player.
Yeah.
But I agree with however they feel. I'm not gonna criticize one or two players. If they want to sit this one out, it's their decision. I think we need to roll with it.
You may not criticize them, but I sure as hell will. I, it they're stupid if they don't want to play. It's that simple. I mean, the NBA. Look at everything that's going on, right?
Okay.
The NBA is taking absolutely every single measure to make sure that the players are healthy and able to play and do it safely without any risk of contracting COVID-19. That's what we're talking about here, right? So let's put it into perspective.
Right.
If you don't want to do your job, then there needs to be a consequence. I mean,
well, they won't get paid. They just won't get paid.
They won't get paid, but what about the workers who are at, say Walmart that have had to work through this entire thing? You don't think they've been busting their ass working, or the
players were given they're not given
but,
the opportunity at Walmart. They are given the opportunity in the NBA. That's just how it was set up. And
but what I'm saying is that there's no reason that the NBA players shouldn't create a united front and say, listen, you can't leave us hanging. You can't leave your teammates hanging because, only a couple of you don't want to play. I mean, think about it. There's 30 NBA teams. So we're talking just over 2 per squad that are saying that they don't want to play. I mean, and then, you've got teams that are already out of it, that aren't even coming back. So what the hell do they matter? Again, Kyrie Irving saying the same thing. He's not fucking playing. What's the why does his vote matter at this point? He's not going to be playing. I don't understand why he should be creating noise for a sport that should be coming back and giving us the content that we've been begging for.
We criticize athletes all the time for speaking out against things. This is just another one of those instances. You can't help that an athlete like Kyrie Irving, who's a big star, is going to use his platform to speak his mind.
We're talking about the same person who said that the Earth was flat. I mean, how much respect are we giving his word at this point?
I mean, his fellow athletes give him a lot of credit because he is one of the best point guards in the game, and they hold him in such a high regard. They're going to listen to what he has to say, no matter what it is, no matter how ridiculous it is. So, and I'm sure he's just being vocal about it. There's a lot of conservative players who aren't going to speak out, who think the same way he does, who don't want to put themselves in that situation. And there are some players who are overseas who probably can't come back. There are a lot of travel restrictions, so that's another COVID reason why they can't come back to the game. It may not be that they don't want to put themselves at risk; they just can't come back because they're not allowed to.
But that's an extenuating circumstance. I'm talking about the players that are tested healthy, and that are on U.S. soil that can physically and actually they can be in the stadium. And
how do you know they're going to be kept safe? We've seen players with the Texans and the Cowboys that have gotten COVID-19, even though they've been at the facilities practicing with other people who supposedly tested negative. They're going to go.
What else were they doing? The problem is that you're either all in or you're all out. You can't be half in, because when you're half in, you're only going to get a terrible product, and that's the last thing I want to see. If I'd rather have no basketball than half of the players playing, some not wanting to play and still playing, and then the others just not even there. That's not basketball at that point. That's just a bunch of pickup games.
I think there will be. I think a lot of the players, or at least enough, will turn over and come back because they want to play basketball. But if they decide that they don't want to move forward, then we got to live with their decision. We can't get upset. We weren't expecting to have anything anyway, and now that we might have something and we're getting upset that it might be taken away, you just got to grow up and deal with it. We're not in control of the situation. The players now have the control, and the way the rules are set up, there's nothing anybody can do about it. So just you got to learn to live with their decision.
I just can't imagine that players who choose not to play, that there can't be any consequence for them if they choose not to play besides not being paid. I mean, at the end of the
Then the
day,
NBA shouldn't have given the opportunity. They said it that the players will not get in trouble if they decide not to show up and play. That's the NBA's fault then. Be mad at the NBA. Be mad at Adam Silver.
I'm not mad. I'm just saying that there is a responsibility of the players to show up and go to work. We think of it as a game, right? The game of basketball. This is a livelihood for these folks, right? So right now they're not getting paid. They get paid a lot more than a normal accountant does, or somebody who's working in a law office, or whatever the case is, right? They're getting paid a lot more than these folks, so they can afford to maybe take off some time. But the fact of the matter is that they if they refuse to go to work, there needs to be some sort of consequence. And I understand that the league or the company that they work for has already put in parameters in which they're allowed to miss work. It's just now you're leaving everybody else to pick up the slack, and you're giving the notion that you don't care about your teammates, and I'm not on that boat. I like we talk about camaraderie, and what's the biggest thing that you see in like championship teams? How close they are, what they're willing to do for each other. We all watched the Jordan doc, we watched The Last Dance. There was nothing those players wouldn't have done for each other. At the end of the day, like if half your team is choosing not to play, like what does that say about their team camaraderie? What does that say about them being there for each other? I just don't agree with this at all.
I mean, this is a special circumstance that has impacted a lot of people in a lot of different ways. There have been a good amount of players who have either contracted COVID themselves or know a lot of people, especially family members, that have contracted it, and some have passed away. And so we had Rose Namajunas in the UFC pull out of UFC 250 or 249 at that point because her, I believe, grandmother or mother contracted COVID-19 and passed away due to it. And everybody was fine with that. I don't think there should be any different reaction from NBA fans if a player has suffered suffered in the same way and doesn't want to put themselves in harm's way if they think staying in quarantine is best for themselves. I just don't think that you can. It's looking bad to your teammates that you're not playing along. You're not part of the team.
But again, this is their livelihood, right?
But this is bigger than sports. What COVID-19?
It's not sport. It's just livelihood. It's being able to live. It might be nice for some of these players with multi-million-dollar per year contracts to say, you know what, I don't need to work. But what about the guys at the end of the bench? What about the guys that are not dressing for each game? They're 12 through 15 on the roster. Those guys aren't making a whole hell of a lot of money. And if you're telling them that they can't go to work or that they have to do something different, it's just you're not there for them. And I see it being a bad coworker, a bad teammate, and just like a bad overall employee.
I don't think they are any different from anybody else who is unemployed or furloughed at this moment. They can, if they're struggling for money, then fine.
But they're not unemployed. They're not furloughed. Their company is in action. Their company is working.
But they were put on pause. They are eligible for unemployment if they need the money that bad, right. Which they don't, because I think most of them are paid well enough that they'll be fine. If not, I'm sure they have teammates who are willing to help them out. I'm sure their owners would be able to front them some money or pay them in advance or something. They could work something out. That's not against the rules. They can get some monetary or financial help in that way. But for the most part, these players, especially the ones who are saying they don't want to play because they have issues playing with COVID still around, they don't have financial issues. They don't need to worry about money, and it's not it's not about money for the players who do want to play. That everybody has their own circumstances of why they do or do not want to play. You gotta just respect their decision. There's nothing more to it. There's not anything you can do to really persuade them to go one way or another. Everybody's got their mind made up whether they want to say so or not.
No, I think my biggest qualm is that, again, you're letting teammates down, you're letting the your company down, and overall, like, people are fighting for this chance to be where you are, and you're turning it down. And overall, right, we're talking about players coming back and um, you know playing the sport of basketball. It's led by Kyrie Irving, and I know we've talked about this already, but Kyrie Irving is not one of those players who's playing. It's like if somebody from the New York Knicks was leading the charge. They wouldn't be playing anyway. So what's the point, right? What's the point of them saying anything? Like, just go about your business. I don't think we're so close to the finish line. I can't imagine that this person needed to say something and start getting people all riled up, and now it's in danger of not even happening.
I don't think the result or the outcome would be any different if he were to stay quiet. What Kyrie didn't have an impact on a lot of players, whether you think so or not.
80 plus players are possibly refusing to play. That didn't happen before he said a word.
But some were on the fringe, and maybe there needs to be somebody that speaks up for why they should play, but there appears to be nobody, and maybe that's a sign that there is nobody that high of high standard that wants to participate in these events, in these games. Maybe it is the that maybe that'll hold this back. We don't know. The NBA has to work this out. Adam Silver needs to work this out with the players. I'm sure Chris Paul and Adam Silver have been in lengthy discussions, and they've been getting together leaders of different teams to get a feel of how they can move on, because they need to start practicing soon. They're about to be shipped out. They need to be in Orlando in 2 weeks if they want to start on time at the end of July. They need to be there for 3 weeks just to quarantine. Right. So there isn't much time to figure this out, and I don't know what it's going to take. Is it going to take higher safety? Are they going to have to increase the safety of the players? Are they going to? But you can't put too many restrictions on them, because they still have to live their lives. You can't say you can't leave the Disney grounds. You can't go outside of these walls for 2 months. You can't do that to these players. They're adults. They're human beings. They can make their own decisions.
No, you can do that as part of this coming back. Like, there are always stipulations if
stuff like that is also going to push players in the wrong direction.
They've already said that the park isn't open to players or their families. Their families aren't allowed into the games. That they've already made a lot of these rules, well known.
I don't know exactly what the NBA can do to ensure to the players who don't want to play that they are safe. You can't guarantee anything. COVID has struck in many different ways, and sometimes there is no way of avoiding it. It just happens. And once it gets in, then pretty much everybody's infected because of basketball. You're on top of each other constantly, and it's going to travel fast. I think there is a higher chance of an outbreak within the NBA if they do bring back basketball than not having an outbreak. I'd be very shocked if they were able to go the entire 2.5 month season without anybody contracting it and spreading it to other players. That would be extremely impressive, but highly unlikely. And so I understand where some of these players are coming from. If they were to contract it, hypothetically, Most of them will probably be asymptomatic because they are professional athletes. They are in great condition, um, but you never know what could happen. You know, freak accidents happen all the time, and you just don't want to leave something up to chance if you have a way to control it, a way to prevent it. And I think this is one of those situations where the players know they can prevent it by not playing and just waiting. You know, if they don't move on with the season now, then we get to start back up in October. If everything is back to normal or semi back to normal, then we don't have to wait until December to start the new season. You know, we can start it on time as planned and just let this whole thing go. It's
I just think you're opening Pandora's box for this to be a recurring issue where players can now take the stance of, well, even in October, because per the CDC and the WHO, they don't expect this to be completely gone by then. They don't expect it to be gone until at least next year minimum, right? So we're taking a look at that and saying, you know, what if they don't want to play in October? Now what? Are we going to use the
I
same
think that's
arguments to keep them? Why is that different? It's the same exact stance. It's the same exact spot that we're in now.
I mean, we can't really, foresee the future that far in advance. Anything can happen because, they said, COVID was going to be a lot worse than it was. Everybody's just making educated guesses. This is something brand new that we don't even have a cure for yet. So we're still learning about it, and so these are all just hypotheticals. There is a chance. Hey, these spikes in Texas and Florida and some of these other states have been just they might be an anomaly. They could just we're seeing with the riots. I hate to bring it up, but we haven't heard of any huge outbreaks in some of these states that have had these protests of COVID.
That's because it could also lay dormant for up to or more than 2 weeks. So
right, and we're approaching that 2 week mark from the start of the protests. I think that we are going to see that people adapt very rapidly, and I think a lot of people their immune system and their body are adjusting to COVID and know how to handle it or are well equipped to handle it. And I think especially for players that they'll come around to the fact that, hey, there hasn't been going on anything hasn't happened in months, and we will be able to perform our duties just fine without the risk of contracting this disease. I think they'll get to that point. I just don't think that point is now for a lot of these guys.
I want to bring it back to where we started, and 80 plus NBA players refusing to play to me is just one of those things where
But do you really
setting
think
a precedent? Hold on, you're setting a precedent, and you're going down a dark hole that you may not be able to get back from out of.
Do you really think that was caused by one player? Do you really think Kyrie Irving convinced 79 other players?
I think he was the straw that broke the camel's back. I think people felt that way, but they weren't willing to say anything. I think they were going to just go on about their business and do their thing. And you know what? Sometimes it's just easier if that's the case. I understand that he's a person and he has a voice, and I want him to speak his voice. But when he's talking about something that's not going to affect him, when it has nothing to do with him specifically, he's just creating problems for other people. And that's where I find the issue, is that he started speaking on something that, like, he doesn't even have to go to Orlando. He's not playing. He's done. His season's over. The Nets have made that very clear. Okay? And if it was, anybody else, LeBron James, if LeBron James said it, I think my stance might have been a little different. But to be someone who has already created a stir in the NBA once, multiple times before, and somebody who is he's looking to get a rise out of people, and it doesn't affect him at all. It's like, starting a fire and walking away and not caring what happens afterward. That's what I see from Kyrie Irving, and that's why I took the stance that I did. I don't appreciate what he did.
I still think we'd see a lot of players, maybe not 80 plus players, but we'd see most of these players still say, I'm not comfortable playing what with COVID, still very prevalent. I think that we would see more than half of those players sitting out still, no matter who says something or who doesn't say something. They're all talking. They all have their inner connections, their inner networks that they talk to each other. It doesn't all have to be on social media out in the public. A lot of the players, your teammates, you're texting back and forth privately, and you're talking about these things. How do you feel about this? How has it affected you? What are you really comfortable? I'm on the fringe, and I think if a lot of these players, I'm sure they're grouped up on the same team. If we if there are a lot of teammates that want to sit this one out, then maybe just remove the team and add a supplement team, or just move on without them completely. Open up another playoff spot for one of the other teams to fill. I'm sure the NBA can work around it. They just need to get a good grip on who doesn't want to be here, how many players from the same team are don't want to play, and then they have to decide whether or not that team is eligible to continue on with the season, or if they vacate their position.
We'll have to see how the NBA handles this, and how things are going. Like you said, we're 3 weeks out from what is the supposed start of the restart from the NBA season, and at this point, I don't really know.
We've got 2 weeks until they have to fly out to Orlando.
Right. So we'll see how everything goes. At this point, I'm not too sure how that's gonna go. All right. Let's move on. We can pick that up next week if we want to talk more about it. So it looks like the NBA season's gonna happen, but what looks like won't happen is the baseball season. After some optimism early on, a couple weeks back, I think part of our discussion was about how baseball might be the first sport back. And the players were working really hard with owners to try to get a proposition filled, and that they got one in. And last week reported that that the owners basically said no, and then they offered a second proposal, and they said no again, and here we are. Rob Manfred had previously said that there is 100% chance we see baseball in 2020. That was just over about a week ago, and then earlier this week he said he's not confident that baseball will return this year. Nick, what the hell is Rob Manfred doing?
Rob Manfred's an absolute idiot. He's as stupid as he was when he said that the World Series, the trophy is just a piece of metal.
Just a piece of metal. Yeah.
He's still showing how much of an idiot he is. And I think that, whenever I don't know when his contract's up, he's not getting renewed as the commissioner. Whoever's next in line better get prepared to deal with these issues, because Rob Manfred's time is limited. But, I'm still sticking to my theory. They didn't want to approve the 114 game season. That was just showing you that they weren't going to approve anything. I don't care what they had thought of ideas months before, and nothing was even brought to the table. This was brought to the table, shot down right away. They're thinking about an 89 game schedule. I don't care if it's brought to the table. It's going to get shot down right away. There is nothing that the owners or league want to deal with. They don't want to deal with paying these players a prorated salary, or dealing with TV rights, paying these teams some money so they can pay their players. And then, even if the MLB were to bring back the season, now you're running into the same issue the NBA has. All right, the MLB season has been brought back, 89 game season, say, hypothetically, now the players have to decide whether they want to come back. How many of them are going to say, I don't want to play?
We've already heard from some of those players. Again, Bryce Harper, Nolan Arenado, a lot of the big name players have already said that they don't feel like it's in their best interest to play. And I have the same criticism that I had for Kyrie Irving toward Bryce Harper and Nolan Arenado, just so everyone is clear.
Yeah, I just think that they're Rob Manfred is trying to mitigate that risk of, getting optimistic about a season and then the players kind of ruining it. And, if he wants to take that burden on, that's fine. He's doing it in the worst way possible by saying, I don't think the season's going to happen. I don't think that's the best way of doing it. You need to kind of make an effort to make the season happen and then let the players make their decision, just like Adam Silver's doing. I think you need to follow that approach. But Rob Manfred in general is just an absolute idiot and needs to be removed from his position. He has no grip on how the players feel, how the organizations feel, and how the fans feel.
Yeah, I wanna address a quote, and I'm gonna look away from the camera for a sec just so I can read it. So many of you who follow sports and follow ESPN and baseball know who Keith Olbermann is, and for those of you who don't, he's a highly touted ESPN studio host. He's got his own show, and he's very intuitive about baseball, and overall he's just a very smart person. He was on the Rich Eisen show earlier this, I believe this was this week or maybe possibly even today. He said, if there's no sports played this year, what will be remembered of baseball? What will be remembered of baseball is the Astros scandal and how the owners tried to take financial advantage of a pandemic and fired their scouts and cut their minor league players and did not, in a business where the franchises are worth a combined $55 billion, billion with a B, could not spend the money on the people who ordinarily would work the games, and then this genius move. One thing you have to understand is whereas everybody else in the world, but about 31 guys look at this and says, you really have managed to find the worst thing you could do at the worst possible moment you could do it. The baseball owners and Rob Manfred think they are having tremendous success right now. They don't see things the way everybody else does. Keith Olbermann went on to say that Rob Manfred is holding Major League Baseball hostage, and I don't think I could have put it any better myself. I mean, the fact of the matter is that Rob Manfred has a vice grip on the entire sport, and he's killing it. The sport itself was already underwater, and now he's just forcing it under even further. He's drowning what is left of the fanship, of people who were interested in being part of the sport. Anything about it, it's gone. If you look at any of the statistics about fanship in baseball, they by far have the highest age of demographic of fans, and it keeps climbing because the younger generations don't care about baseball. They're watching football, they're watching basketball, and that's what they care about. That bridges their entire year together right there. So they don't care about baseball anymore. Um, Rob Manfred and the owners, it's not just him, it is the owners because he is the owner's puppet. The owners have let go of everybody that's not a major league player. They fired all their scouts. They're not paying people. They're saving money everywhere they can, and they're refusing to pay players. Even though they would make some money, they're not going to make enough to make it worth their while. And I think this is an absolute abomination that we have to deal with as sports fans and overall as human beings. I mean, the fact of the matter is that so many people lost their jobs, and the billionaire owners don't believe that it's worth their while to rehire those people, get the sport back to where it was, and kind of start moving things forward. Because it's not going to make them enough money. It'll make them some money, but not enough for their trouble. That's where I have an issue, and I just think that this is going to be the end of baseball. This is the beginning of the end for the sport of baseball as a major league sport.
I don't think that the sport of baseball is going anywhere anytime soon. it needs to be revamped. It needs to be reformed. They need to change the way it is played, the speed at which it's played, the rules, everything behind it. Get rid of the umpires need to be updated. Everything. They need to just revamp it completely. They need to start, testing some new ideas out in the lower leagues, in the AAA, the Double A, Single A. You need
Can't do that when you fired all the players. When you've gotten rid of the minor leagues, can't do that anymore.
It's not like baseball is just going to be gone right away. There's going to be plenty of time to test new ideas, but it's not going to happen while Rob Manfred is still the commissioner of the MLB. He is taking the blow for the owners. Like you said, he is the puppet for them, and he is taking he's taking all of the blow. He's not letting any of the backlash go on to the owners. He is making these statements and just saying, "Hey, look at me. Don't look over there at them. This is my doing, not theirs." And so,
but that's his job.
Though that helps him save face with the owners. Hey, you saved my back. I'm gonna help you out when it comes to your contract negotiations. If we want to bring you back. The owners are the ones who decide whether he stays commissioner or not.
Right, and that's how somebody like Roger Goodell has stayed in power in the NFL, is because the owners like him, but nobody else does. The players don't, the fans don't. They hate him. I mean, look at how much money Dave Portnoy from Barstool spent on the possibility of spending a Sunday with Roger Goodell just to give him shit, right? That's exactly what people are doing. Like, that's Rob Manfred. I can't even imagine what that would sell for somebody to spend an entire day watching baseball and just giving him shit. Like, I at this point, I don't really like. I do truly, and I hate to say it, but I truly believe this is the beginning of the end for the sport of baseball. I think it is going to fall below the depths of where hockey is right now in the United States. I don't think it's going to be gone as a major league sport ever, but I do think that it is going to fall by the wayside, and it'll just become like a second or third tier sport that people think about anymore. I can't see it reclaiming anywhere near a top spot anymore.
I still, I think that there's a lot of things that speak to the younger generation. You've got these giant athletes in the MLB who are making big money playing for these iconic teams with these great histories. A lot of players want to be a part of that. A lot of the young generation want to be a part of that. And I think that will keep driving interest into the MLB. But they still, they will end up revamping the game at some point or another to be more like the other sports. They need to be, it needs to be shorter and more fast paced.
Right, but so let me ask you this: what gives you the thought that those owners have the mental capacity to think that they need to modernize the sport? Because they haven't shown me a lick of evidence. Oh, they haven't shown me a lick of evidence that says that they understand that this is a sinking ship and they need to fix it.
It's going to take a new influx of new owners. I'm not going to talk too much into this, but a lot of these owners are old white men. They're not around forever. Their teams are going to get passed on to their children or to new owners who want to make change. We've seen in the NBA, new owners come in and want to make change right away. They're putting money into their teams. Same thing in the NFL. These new owners put money into their team. They put money into the cities. They want to make change. They're big voices within the owners. They come in there and they're ready to knock some heads to get some real change made. And I think that's what's going to happen in the MLB. We're going to get a huge influx of new owners at the same time. And that their voices combined will create a lot of change. They're going to change.
The only problem I see with that is that I don't see a team like the Yankees being able to be sold, right? The Steinbrenners aren't letting go of that. I don't see John Henry giving up the Red Sox. I don't see the ownership group giving up control of the Dodgers. An ownership group, mind you, that has Magic Johnson on the grouping. I don't like. There's no part of that says, like if
No, but
he's been silenced basically trying to revamp it. I don't know. I think it's a black hole for new voices. I don't see any possibility for somebody to come in and create change because they have such a systematic culture in the ownership area of baseball that I don't think any singular person can come in and make change. And these teams aren't going to be sold. The major teams that people care about are not going to be sold.
I think that it only takes one or two voices that are going to push past the barriers and get, just like Kyrie's doing with some of these players, according to you. He's getting in the heads of other players and forcing them to think a certain way. All it takes is a couple owners to keep speaking out over and over and over to get
saying.
in the heads of these other owners.
Baseball doesn't have that.
But it will in due time. It's a process.
It's a process, but no teams are up for sale. Nobody's looking to sell, and the problem is that there's like, how long do you have to wait?
But like you said, we have Magic Johnson is a part owner for the Dodgers. Derek Jeter, part owner for the Marlins. We've got
sold off that entire team. Congratulations.
But we've got these people who have either played the game. A-Rod is possibly the new owner of the Mets. That might take place soon. That's been put on hold, but who knows? If you get owners that were either players or people who were in other sports, they know what they want. They know what needs to happen. They played the game. They understand what changes need to be made. If you get more of those people in there, they're going to start making some noise. And I know if someone brand new were to come in right now and start making noise, in 6 months, you'd see Derek Jeter, A-Rod, Magic, a bunch of other people.
Are you telling me that if somebody
board.
Bought the Seattle Mariners, that they would be taken seriously by the Steinbrenners and by John Henry and all of the major owners that are throughout baseball?
Yeah, I mean, what if it's
No.
It depends on who the person is.
No.
What if you don't
Unless it's Drake buying the Toronto Blue Jays, this ain't happening.
What if it's the owner of Amazon, who's
Jeff Bezos?
Jeff Bezos, who's a Seattle native, wants to bring back the Supersonics. What if he
He's
what
not
if he
gonna
goes
do
out?
a damn thing. He's gonna hire somebody else to manage it. That's
I don't know. He is a true sports fan. He's a huge sports fan.
He's no Steve Ballmer, Nick. He's not gonna come in and just revolutionize an entire franchise and then help create change league wide.
I mean, I
just don't see that happening.
I would, if Bezos was an owner, I'd put him in the same light as Ballmer or Cuban. One of these guys that's gonna make noise no matter what the consequences are. He's the richest man in the world. He can say whatever he wants. He doesn't care what the fine is.
You're talking about Jeff Bezos, if he is one person out of millions that could possibly take over,
but he's someone who is likely to buy a team at some point.
So if I give you him and say, okay, maybe him, who else can make change that can come into an ownership spot? Because I don't know anybody who is going to. Again, you don't understand the clout that is being held. Again, I'm going to reiterate the same names over and over again. John Henry of the Boston Red Sox, the Steinbrenner family of the New York Yankees. Those guys have held major positions, and they are widely respected throughout the ownership aura of Major League Baseball. And what they say matters. Just because somebody comes in doesn't mean that they automatically have, a major say in what's going on. That's why you need somebody that's as big as the sport or bigger, like I said, Drake owning the Toronto Blue Jays, or if Jeff Bezos owning the Seattle Mariners, like somebody like that, maybe. I just don't think that Major League Baseball has the type of pull to get some of those guys in there right now.
I think there's definitely room for that, and I think that will happen. I guarantee if Bezos were to step in today and buy the Mariners, that he could create any change he wants. He is an iconic figure in today's society, and anybody, especially these owners who are billionaires, they're gonna listen to a guy like that because he's superior to them. He is bigger than them, and they're gonna want to be on his good side because they know that he can improve their lives in many more ways other than baseball. And if he is preaching change in the sport of baseball with his success rate, you know that he's onto something and you need to get on board with him. You know, a lot of anybody, Steve Ballmer was what, worth 80 billion, probably is worth 80 billion dollars. You know, this guy overpaid for a team and came in and made some changes right away. He changed the culture in for the Clippers. You know, he brought in huge names.
He needed to create a change in culture. That was a toxic culture created over there.
But not like the NBA doesn't need to change as rapidly as the MLB does. But if it needed to be, they have owners who would do that, and it eventually will happen. It eventually will happen with the MLB.
Look what happened with the NBA, though. They have now become the clear-cut front runner to challenge the NFL for top major sport in the United States, right? And almost worldwide, right? They're up there, like worldwide. They lead. Besides soccer, it goes soccer or football, and then NBA right underneath them. But the problem with soccer is that it's split into so many different categories throughout different countries and different leagues and whatever. The whole world can focus on the NBA. Like everybody in the world knows who LeBron James is, Kobe Bryant is. Like those are household names. Rest in peace, Kobe. Like those are things that Major League Baseball can't attain. People just don't care anymore about the sport, and I just think that Rob Manfred is just dunking the head underwater at this point.
Me and you both know that there are easy ways of changing that. Reducing the game, the number of games played, increasing.
It's easy on paper, but it's not easy to get done.
But you got to start. It will happen. It's just things take time. Change doesn't happen overnight.
I just might be a pessimistic person, but I truly do not believe that these changes will happen in my lifetime. I just don't.
They're going to happen within the next 10 years.
I doubt it.
We're going to see at least 2 or 3 new owners within the next 10 years. And I guarantee at least one of them is going to, talk and speak out and start the change. I think that's going to be a huge, I think that's going to be huge in sports moving forward. We're seeing it in the NFL. People are, a lot of these owners are getting on board with their players and agreeing with them and listening to them to see how they can make changes in the game and outside of the game. And I think that's going to start branching out into other sports. I think that's going to, have a ripple effect. I think it just takes time. You can't just want it to happen tomorrow and expect it to happen and be upset if it doesn't. You got to just, wait for, kind of sit back and wait for it. You can't be too urgent or eager about it.
Yeah. We'll see what happens, but like I said, I think Rob Manfred has literally taken the sport of baseball, given it a chokehold, smacked it on the head, and dunked its head under the lake.
He's doing what he has to keep his job, stay in the good graces of the owners. Yeah.
All right, let's move forward. There's a slight change to the end of our show, so right now, let's move on to the next topic. We have the NFL announced today that the Pro Bowl, which has spent the last 4 years in Orlando. Previously, it was at Honolulu Stadium in Hawaii. It'll now be in Las Vegas, and I'm not sure. Maybe you can answer this. Is this for 2020 only, or did they say for moving forward?
This is moving forward, to my knowledge.
That's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah. So this is really interesting. I mean, in Orlando, the last 4 years to be exact, it's kind of been a nightmare. You're out there, you're playing, you're there for a week pretty much as the players, playing all these mini games, and then you're playing this game. The Pro Bowl's been kind of a joke for a while, and I think last year they increased the money for the team that wins, and so that increased the competitiveness amongst the players. But we're still talking about the best of the best, and they're obviously getting paid a ton of money and don't care about a couple $100,000 that much. It's going to go to charity, for the most part. But we're talking about the Pro Bowl moving to Las Vegas, which is really really interesting because Vegas opens up a lot of opportunities to do other things to improve the the event as a whole, because not only are fans gonna go to Vegas to watch the game, to be a part of the activities, but it's also Vegas. You get to be in the um, casinos. You get to be a part of that nightlife. Go to the strip. People go to Vegas all the time without a Pro Bowl, but I think that's gonna improve the quality of the event. A lot more players are gonna want to go to Las Vegas to play because it's a new place, it's exciting, and Vegas is always fun for most people. I think that's going to definitely help them. I like this move. I think it's great, and it's great for the Raiders because it gets more traction for them on their new stadium that costs what $3 billion, something around there. Um, I think that this will be a great site for them. I think that moving it away from Honolulu was a terrible idea because it gave a lot of the Pro Bowlers something to look forward to. No one really wants to go to Orlando, especially if you're a Dolphin or a Jaguar. Um, this is it's something new and exciting, and I think it being in Las Vegas adds a new element to the entire event.
Yeah, I'm gonna say that it's cool that the NFL is moving into Las Vegas. I'm also gonna say who gives a shit, and I say that with all due respect to you, who put a lot of time into what you just said, but also, um, who cares about the Pro Bowl anymore? The players don't care about the Pro Bowl, and it shows on the field. If you have you watched any of the Pro Bowls in the last few years, they have been god awful games. Uh, with players that don't want to be there. I mean, hell, the most noteworthy thing to happen in the last few Pro Bowls is Jamal Adams tackling the Patriots mascot on the sideline. Woohoo! Like, literally, nobody cares about the Pro Bowl because they don't want to play it. I think they need to change the entire format, make it just like a fun weekend, do like an inverted type of football where, wide receivers are linemen and, it's a flag football game with offensive and defensive linemen being receivers and corners, and that could be fun. That I would watch. Do something different. Got to change the game. Going to Las Vegas, changing the venue, I don't think it's going to get a lot of people to watch it. I don't think enough people care about, a football game that doesn't mean a damn thing. When you look at MLB All-Star Weekend, right? There's a lot riding on what happens in the All-Star game. Who's going to host the World Series, right? Is it going to be, uh, home for NL for 4 games or home for AL for 4 games? There's a lot riding on that, right? So now it gives people a reason to root and to pay attention and to actually, and for the players to actually try in the game. Uh, in the NBA, you have players who the players who do choose to play end up putting on a damn show. I mean, it becomes a dunk contest and a 3-point contest, but it is so fun to watch. I I don't need to see some defensive end coming around and sacking the quarterback, and he's like, "Oh darn, I went down," and not caring that he didn't get the ball off in time. Overall, I just Las Vegas is cool, but overall, like the Pro Bowl means nothing to me anymore. I think it's just a show.
I don't think it's as much about the audience on TV as it is about getting more people to come to the event. How many, when you have watched the Pro Bowl in the past, how many people are in the stands? 50%, maybe a little bit more. It's never full, never packed. I
It was
think
in Hawaii.
it, well, that's different, yeah, because Hawaii is a vacation destination for a lot of people, and that gets a lot more people. A lot of the players bring in a lot of their family. People want to travel there because it's a stadium that gets played in once a year, and then like I said with Vegas, it's a tourist destination on its own. People go there to be in Hawaii. People go to Vegas to be in Vegas. And I think they're bringing that aspect back to it without going back to Hawaii. You're still going to go to Vegas for other things rather than football. But now this event gives you the opportunity, gives the entire city the opportunity to um, to gives them football, gives them casinos, gives them nightlife, gives them these extracurricular activities earlier in the week with the smaller events they do. So it creates like this week of fun on top of more fun with what Vegas already has to offer. And so there's more reason for a fan to go to Vegas to watch the Pro Bowl than there is to go to Orlando. A lot of these people who are going to travel to see the Pro Bowl aren't going to want to go to Disney World, for the most part. They'd rather go to a casino, go see a show, go hang out at one of these iconic places. Vegas is chock full of replica monuments from around the world, and I think that's a huge draw. But now you get to enjoy that alongside different events going on all week long, and I think that's just it adds to the draw for the players, for the players and for the fans. I think that it's more about the people in attendance than it is for the people at home.
I still don't think anybody.
At least hey, I would be a lot more intrigued. I'd be more enticed to go to Vegas to watch the Pro Bowl than I would to go to Orlando.
Yeah, you're not gonna go to Vegas to go to the Pro Bowl. You'll go to Vegas, and if the Pro Bowl's happening, maybe you'll buy tickets. Otherwise, again, nobody cares about the Pro Bowl. I would rather go see like the different skill competitions that they run earlier in the week than I would the actual Pro Bowl game. Like that's what I would like to see. I think they really need to redevelop that aspect of the sport. Again, that's the week that bridges the championship games to the Super Bowl. So like a lot of people just use it as a break from football before the Super Bowl, right? It's the last weekend preparation Super Bowl, and then the football season's over. I don't know. To me, I was like, oh, that's cool, but like I just, again,
you're never gonna get rid of the actual game. That's like the NBA saying, hey, we're gonna keep the dunk contest and the 3-point contest and the skills contest, but not the actual All-Star game.
Yeah, but people tune in for people tune in for that. People don't care about the Pro Bowl anymore. They just don't.
Yeah, they have. You're not. I mean, it's a different aspect. I mean, it's different for the NBA and for the NFL. I think the NFL is gonna, now that it's in Vegas, they're gonna do a better job of promoting the smaller events that go on. I think that's gonna be a bigger highlight. It's been bigger each year that they've been doing it. It's only been going on for like 3 years now that they've had these smaller games going on, or smaller competitions, whatever you want to call them. But I just think the NFL is going to see bigger revenue and bigger attractiveness from fans now that they're in Vegas for the Pro Bowl.
We'll have to see. We had another topic to end the show. I'm gonna just kind of gloss over it and go to we have some, I don't want to say breaking news, but definitely some brand new news that I feel like we should go over, right? Because we talked about it extensively at the beginning of the show, right? So a New York, let me see who it was. It was the New York Daily News reported that Kyrie Irving suggested NBA players in a group text start their own league instead of going back with the NBA restart. Now, I looked at it and I dismissed it as like whatever, that's just talk. And then apparently he's got a lot of traction with a lot of NBA players who are willing to walk out on the NBA, including it's Kyrie Irving and Avery Bradley leading this charge, with a lot of other players, to help organize a player coalition in an effort to give a voice to anyone who is reluctant to speak out about concerns about the league's ability to restart. It's not just COVID related, it's also about the Black Lives Matter movement. They want to make sure that the NBA restart is not overshadowing everything that's happening with the Black Lives Matter movement. So they want to start their own league and start their and basically do a walkout as part of the Black Lives Matter protests, as players create their own league and then put on a show that would directly benefit the Black Lives Matter movement. Um, and there's going to be more information that comes out from this, but this is just a raw reaction. This is the news that's happening right now. I'm reading it from ESPN. Shams Charania, it has also posted on Twitter about it. Um, Nick, what do you think about the possibility that Kyrie Irving and Avery Bradley could start a new league?
I mean, I don't think it's possible. I think there's somewhere in their contract that doesn't allow them to compete against the association they're already in. You can't start a competing basketball league with the NBA. That's just there. I know that it's got to be in there somewhere, and so I think this is all. It's just a bunch of talk, and I think this is one way that Kyrie Irving and Avery Bradley and others are using their platform to make change in their own way. I don't think it's the most productive way. It doesn't seem like it's going to lead to anything more than a lot of annoyed fans, NBA fans, because you're holding it back for reasons other than COVID. Um, but I think right now I'm just gonna take it as talk. I'm not gonna take it as anything more than that. I don't think this is gonna form into anything. It's you know they don't have any infrastructure to do something like this unless they're gonna play pickup basketball at Rucker Park. Um,
Right.
I just there's no real way. And what change would come of it? Are you gonna donate all the proceeds to Black Lives Matter? Like what's the real?
Possibly. The funny part is that you said this would have to take place at Rucker Park, and that's exactly what I thought of when I first heard this. I was like, wow, there's really going to be like a an organized basketball at Rucker Park. This is kind of crazy. For those of you who don't know what Rucker Park is a very famous park in Harlem, New York, that is most known for famous basketball players just kind of shooting with people who play pickup games. There's very active and very competitive games that happen there, and they have bleachers for an audience, and they take pride in the basketball that they play over there. It's quite the sight to be seen, and I've seen plenty of videos throughout the internet, and I do hope to get there one day and truly watch it. I've tried many times, but nobody was playing those days. Um, so it'll be interesting. But I want to read a statement that the NBA came out with in response to Kyrie Irving in this whole message that happened. Um, this is straight from Adam Silver's office. A central goal of our season restart will be to utilize the NBA's platform to bring attention and sustained action to issues of social injustice, including combating systemic racism, expanding educational and economic opportunities across the Black community, enacting meaningful police and criminal justice reform, and promoting greater civic engagement. We are in discussions with the Players Association to develop a comprehensive strategy on how the NBA, its teams, and players can best address these important social issues and uniquely position our league to drive action and create meaningful and generational change. So, this is in response to the report that I just talked about. The New York Daily News again reporting that Kyrie Irving and Avery Bradley had a group discussion with multiple players about starting their own league. The NBA has now come out with a statement basically saying that they're going to use the restart um, to help the Black Lives Matter movement and start creating change. As we've seen, like the NFL has already pledged $250 million over the course of the next 10 years to helping to both the Black Lives Matter and multiple other charities that are going to be helping the growth of inner cities and educational programs and so on and so forth. So, um, Nick, once again, I just want your raw reaction. What do you think of the NBA statement here?
I mean, this seems like an Adam Silver statement right here. This is just who he is. He's gonna try to take a situation that's looking um, negative and turn it into a positive. Because he is players first. He is all about the players, and he's gonna listen to them, and he's gonna take their ideas and say, hey, what your idea really isn't, possible, but I hear you, and I'm gonna work with you and other players to adapt your ideas into our game and see how we can make this work. And I think that's great. I think that's the front office of the NBA doing a great job of listening to their players and taking immediate action. And I think that's something that a lot of other sports need to look at and start adopting. You need to be more proactive with your players and what they're trying to do, what changes they're trying to make, because you're not going to survive without them, and you're going to create, from a business standpoint at least, you're going to get a lot more people involved in what you're doing and what you're selling if you start making changes that impact them and stuff that they're passionate about. So if you start, doing stuff that helps the players and the fans, then that's just great business. But that's just being a good person, and doing good work overall, that the NBA is doing. I think that's great. I think that's a great comeback to what Kyrie was came out and said. I think that'll help smooth things over, and um, it's just gonna add to the change that we're seeing already. The major
For
changes
sure.
we've seen.
I believe I said that Kyrie Irving is one who likes to stir the pot a bit, and he's always been one who kind of uh, beats to his own drum, if you will. Um, I mean that with all due respect to him as well, because I do think that he is doing what he thinks is right and what he thinks is best for him, the Black Lives Matter movement, and everything that goes in with exactly everything that they're doing. With that being said, I think that at this point, this is like the perfect opportunity for him to basically chalk this up as a win and say the NBA, the commissioner is, he's working with us. He's on our side at this point. We need to work with him. We need to make sure that everything that he's doing isn't just talk. We're going to put it into action. We're going to work side by side, and we're going to do this hand in hand, and just overall be better together. Um, so I'm very happy that Adam Silver's office came out with this. Again, I commend Adam Silver for being the best commissioner in Major League Sports, in major sports in the United States and probably throughout the world. I don't know a better commissioner or head of a sport than Adam Silver. I think he has a very difficult job, and he makes it almost seem easy, just with the decisions he makes. And it's kind of like watching a Clydesdale. He's just galloping through the open fields. Um, so overall, we will see. We'll see. July 30th is the pegged date for when the NBA should be starting up in Orlando. We'll see if it happens. We'll see what players are available, what players are playing. Um, you know, all the more reason to stay tuned into our show. Keep up to date on all of the news and information. We make sure that we're breaking news on Twitter. Make sure to follow us on Twitter. You'll see us all over the place. We're constantly interacting with fans and overall just having good discussions and anything that's positive and sports centric. We tend to have very good responses and lively discussions. With that being said, I do want to wrap up the show for this week. I'm so glad that we were able to do this. Uh, Thank you all for taking the time to watch to this point, and I hope that we get to see you next week. With that said, have a good week.
See you.